Florida is the tourism capital of the US, and arguably one of the most picturesque states as well. But did you also know the oldest city in America is also in Florida? During spring break, we took a trip to St. Augustine, Ormond Beach, and nearby Daytona, a very different part of Florida that we hope to connect by passenger rail sooner rather than later. And while we weren't able to drive on the world-famous Daytona Speedway, we made up for it. Somehow. Anyway, then we took a drive up to St. Augustine. It's about an hour away from Daytona as America's first and oldest city, being established in 1565 and founded by the Spanish. It's filled with history and the beginning of what would be Henry Flagler's foray into the Florida East Coast Railroad. We've always respected history here at the High Speed Rail America Club and have always thought it important to be sharing it also too with our viewers, which is why we also took the time to videotape this and to be able to put it up online so you guys can be able to see and learn also too as well, not just about the past, but what it can be also used for the future as well. To learn a little bit more about Henry Flagler, we have some never before heard footage from the American Train documentary that you will hear from official Florida East Coast Railroad historian Seth Bramson.
With the construction of his hotels in St. Augustine, the Ponce de Leon and the Alcazar, the problem was that his contractors kept coming to him and telling him that they couldn't get their goods, they couldn't get the material. So Mr. Flagler, out of sheer frustration, purchased the Jacksonville, St. Augustine, and Halifax River Railroad on December 31st, 1885. And at that point, he was in the railroad business, but he had no intention and no forethought of becoming a great railroad magnate. It was just that he bought the railroad so that he could get the goods, the construction material, across the St. Johns River by ferry, then onto his railroad and bring it down to St. Augustine. And that was the only reason that he bought the railroad. With a series of events and occurrences that happened, starting with the fact that the owners of the Ormond Hotel, John Anderson and James Price, came to see him because they thought he was going to extend the railroad down to Ormond. When he didn't, their first season was a disaster. And then Mr. Flagler wound up buying the Ormond Hotel and extending the railroad down. And then that would lead him to eventually continuing to extend the railroad and eventually to Key West in 1912.
It's yet another lesson we can learn from the past to apply to today. If something is broken, we fix it. If something needs to be done, we do it. And if something needs to be built, we build it. It's not just a Floridian lesson, since the state of Florida is so well known for doing things right, but a lesson to be applied to the entire country. Right now, All Aboard Florida is planned to open for service from Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, and Orlando in 2017, and is expected to expand later on into Tampa and Jacksonville, with stops in Cocoa and maybe somewhere in between like Daytona, Ormond, or St. Augustine, hopefully in the works. The main idea is that if there's a lot Florida has in store, and it's for its residents and visitors to see, and to make it far more accessible to access through the use of passenger rail and high-speed rail, is just one more perk to add on in terms of revenue, jobs, connectivity, and infrastructure reform. This was Demetrius Villa, president of the High Speed Rail America Club, and we'll see you next episode.
Hey guys, Darius Villa here, Director of Research and brother of Demetrius. If you want to help bring high-speed rail to America, subscribe to us, the most active transportation reform channel on YouTube. Be sure to also check out our documentary, The American Train, and our latest episode where we interview the Chief Engineer of the California High-Speed Rail Authority.